and I've been following, what's going on with the Rippaverse because I think it's fascinating. I really do. And I think that, long before Eric July ever created the Rippaverse, like I said before, he's never really been one of the channels that I followed on my own. A lot of people would tell me that he, along with myself, are some of the channels that abstained from going off and reviewing all these things. So I know he kind of falls in with a lot of those channels a lot that do, constantly, we got to talk about this, we got to talk about that's going on Disney, we got to do a review of this or whatever. But he himself stopped doing that. And I always respected him for that. If I understand that, if that's, my understanding is correct there, that he, wouldn't go in and review every little thing, and he was just talking about the problems with the industry and stuff like that, but wouldn't go in and try to promote everything. So I had sort of a general respect for him, just on that alone. But then he created these comics, and the idea is great, cool. Somebody who thinks the way we do, about a lot of these industries and wokeness, in the comics and stuff like that, is creating these books and everything. That's great. And of course, it was very, very popular, very, successful. I didn't read Isom, when it came out, I didn't buy it or anything. By now, I've read Isom just because so many different channels have basically done turn page by turn page, reviews. So yeah, I can say I've read Isom. I did read and do a review of Alphacore, as you guys saw. But a lot has been said about the Sasa sisters, him bringing them on, and them being behind. Not just, and they're not just brought on as the writers of Yaira. They're brought on as like the editors of his books. I mean, I think he calls them the keepers of the lore. They're like they're the ones that are behind everything. Are really kind of the head. I mean, Mike Barron is writing a book for him, and Mike Barron talks about them as his editors. These are my editors. They tell me what to do here and there and this and that. So it's not just a matter of these are the writers of one comic book. The Sasa sisters are now ingrained into the Rippaverse, to the fabric of the entire Rippaverse, all of the books that you're going to read, all of the fiction that you're going to get there. But then you start hearing things about them, and some of the things are so outlandish, you almost think, okay, clearly that's, people are just kind of being some, creating some propaganda or whatever. But then you find out, nope, nope, that's actually real. And I so I decided to do a bit of a deep dive because I made no bones about how much I absolutely hated Alphacore. And to be honest, I still, and I'm only speaking as a reader, as my one individual reader, comic reader. I was interested because Chuck Dixon was the writer. I think Chuck Dixon's awesome. I still, to this moment, feel so betrayed by Alphacore. And again, if you loved it, great, you loved it. I'm not trying to convince anybody to go against it or for it. I'm just talking about my experience with it as a Chuck Dixon fan. What I was betrayed by was the fact that this is the thing that hit me most, and I still hate so much about it, is that these are absolutely analogs. Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. People tried to say when I did that interview, I didn't see it like that. Well, I'm sorry you're dense, but that's what they are. I mean, that is like you can choose to read it and not think about them like that. That's fine. But they are 100% marketed as analogs to Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, the DC Trinity. I mean, his name is Brian Solari or whatever, this name of solar powered Superman. There's the quiet brooding brawler. There's the woman with the lasso. I mean, open your freaking eyes. This is an analog of the DC Trinity. And Chuck Dixon, even though he's never really, he's mostly known for Batman, he's done a lot of great things, but he's not necessarily synonymous with great Superman stories. But I still thought of him always as somebody who truly understood these archetypes, who really understood these characters. And for him to helm a book that was about deconstructing these archetypes, because that's 100% what it is. That's just an objective truth. You can't even argue with me about that. Maybe you like it, and that's fine, but it's a deconstruct. It's, hey, let's take these characters, clearly analogs of these characters, and there's nothing wrong with having analogs of characters, right? I mean, that's okay. That's what drew me to the book. But if you got analogs of these characters, you do one of two things with them. You try to make your own stories with these characters that you don't own the copyrights of, and that's what I was thinking I was going to get. Or the other thing you do is you deconstruct these characters. You'd say, what can I do with these characters that that subverts expectations, of what these characters, would do in the mainstream or the continuity or the public consciousness and so forth. And that's what that book did. That's what it was, a deconstruction from top to bottom. And I utterly hate it because I love these characters and I love the archetypes that they embody and what they do for our culture. And I thought the last stinking thing the universe needs is another crappy story that's going to be out here trying to rip them down and make them bullies, make them tyrants. Which is exactly what Alphacore did. Alphacore is a bunch of bullies. It's a story about this super police force who are a bunch of bullies, tyrant bullies. Eric July had said in one of his videos that he was trying to talk about how diverse he's made Rippaverse with all the different characters and the different books. And if you don't like this book, then maybe you'll like this book. And I kind of liked that about the Rippaverse at first, because I applauded him, and I still do applaud him for the motivation. Let's have a company that's not just to create. I mean, the indie comic books are great, right? I love them. I review them all. I try to literarily analyze them. But they're going to vary in quality, and so I just follow the ones that I know that are really good. But one creator can only put out so many books at a time. So you really have it slow going to get any kind of shared universe or anything that could kind of compete with the Marvel universe or a DC universe. And the way Ripper was talking about his books, it kind of seemed like he was, really kind of going at it the closest we could get to really compete with something like that. As it is right now, I think Graham Nolan's Compass Comics is the closest we really have to competing with that, because the books are coming out very regularly and they're all somewhat interconnected. They are in the same universe, so I kind of like that. So that's an example of something, and I thought that the Rippaverse was going to be that, and I think he's still aiming for that. He is putting out books pretty quickly, and I still do. I admire that aspect. But he said that the different comics and different things to appeal to different people, and he said that one of his videos, he said something to the effect of, the irony is not lost on me being an ANCAP and writing a police force or creating a police force. And I thought, there's no irony there whatsoever, because even though Chuck Dixon wrote it, he created Alphacore, and I think you created Alphacore exactly as I would expect an anarcho-capitalist to create a police force or to write a police force. They're tyrants, they're bullies, they abuse their power, they're jerks to everybody. This is how the stereotypical anarcho-capitalist sees police officers. So there's no diversity of characters there. No, you wrote them exactly from your worldview, And I was thinking about the other characters. Isom is kind of like this, and it really this all kind of clinked together when he was talking about his ideas for Yaira, which no one's read yet because the book is still coming out. But he said he wanted Yaira to be this wild card in his universe, somebody who played by her own rules, who had her own interests, and was going about kind of her own agenda, was a super powerful person, kind of the wild card, had her own agenda, wasn't going to play by necessarily the law, was kind of amoral, wasn't really, there to be a hero, but wasn't really there to be a villain either. And he was talking about how he really wanted somebody like that in his universe to make it kind of, to fill out the diversity of it. And I thought, every character you've written is exactly what you just said. Whether it's Isom or the Alphacore, they're all wild cards. They're all interested in their own self, agendas. None of them are beholden to any, greater sense of morality. They're all, as I said, I talked to Sound Engraver about it. I even mentioned it on live stream the other night, but I'm trying to find a character in the Rippaverse that I can enjoy spending time with. Because all I keep seeing, it just seems like this universe of jerks being jerks to each other. And some people like that. But, oh my gosh, if there's ever been a fictional universe that cried out for an aspirational hero, it would be the Rippaverse. Now, maybe, the Gooding character hasn't come out yet. I don't know much about that character. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they're going to kind of push Gooding as an aspirational character. Mike Barron's writing it, so again, you've got a seasoned writer. But again, since Alphacore turned out the way it did, that's no guarantee that it's going to be great. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about that or expect from that. Even if Gooding was like the, the aspirational hero of the Rippaverse, would that be enough? And not every universe needs to have an aspirational hero as the linchpin. Of course not. I mean, Superman is the linchpin of the DC universe. As Superman goes, so goes the DC universe. But it can be something more like Marvel, where you've got a Captain America who's a very aspirational hero. You've got others too, but a very aspirational hero who does serve as hey, this is the standard, guys. This is the absolute morality. This is make sure that this is the standard to strive, for which to strive. And in the whole universe isn't built around him necessarily. Marvel Cinematic or Marvel Comic Universe, whatever, is far more linked to the cathartic motivational, but he's there, a lot. And so I'm wondering, so is Gooding going to be at least like that? Or is he going to kind of be like people say, when I say that One Punch Man didn't really appeal to me because there's like zero aspirational heroism. And everybody's like, what about Mooman Rider? What about him? He's almost laughed at by the very show. I mean, he's got these like a couple of little sweet moments, and then that's it. Like he's completely ineffective and has zero influence on the goings on around him in that world. At least in the animated series. Maybe that changes with the manga or whatever. I don't know, but or the manga, sorry. But that's not really enough. So all of these characters seem to be the same. So I'm looking for reasons to dig into this more because, again, I like the fact that the Rippaverse channel was so big, kind of organically from this kind of thing. But that's kind of a rookie move when it comes to writing. When all of your characters kind of come out the same, this is something that as a writer you need to start to understand about yourself early on in your writing process. Every writer has a certain cast of characters in their head. You've got, your own little cast of archetypes. Who was it? Gore Vidal, I think, had a great quote about that. That Shakespeare perhaps had the biggest cast of characters, but everybody has, 4 or 5, maybe up to 10 if you're lucky, kind of a cast of characters that tend to show up over and over in the different characters that you write. So, this one type of person keeps showing up in your stories or whatever. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing this sort of quintessential anarcho-capitalist, nobody mess with me, I want my respect, you shut your mouth, I do what I want kind of character, and that's very uninteresting to me. It's very off-putting to me as a reader myself. Just speaking as myself, some people might love that, But so I'm looking for ways to get into this because it's so big and these people are involved. But then the Sasa sisters are attached, and I have to say, when I looked into it, and I made sure I looked into it, and I'm not going to go into this, isn't going to be a stream that tears down the Sasa sisters, because I have nothing against these ladies personally. Wish them all the best. But a lot of things were going on or being said about them. I looked into it and found out that was pretty much correct. A lot of it was correct. And it came down to, for me, to the point where I can't support their work. Again, nothing against them personally, wish them all the best, but I can't support their work. I can't put money into their values, into their ideas, into their expressions. I don't want to be a part of making that more plenteous in the world. And because they have now been so irrevocably ingrained into the very fabric of the Rippaverse, I can't really support the Rippaverse at all. That was a shocking move. When I first heard that they were going to write Yaira, okay, that's one thing. But to straight up have them be the editors-in-chief or keepers of the lore, whatever they're called, of every single story. Yeah, I can't support this. And it's kind of a bummer because I was hoping, I like Mike Barron, I like Chuck Dixon, but to kind of lay that on top of everything else, all the other issues that I saw with the universe, I can't do it. Got to pass.